What makes good water? Mercer On Mission, Mercer University's outreach program, is headed back to the Dominican Republic for one of its annual service study programs. The focus: water accessibility and health. A quick Google search will show you that in the Dominican Republic, 84% have easy access to basic water services. However, the divide between urban and rural is stark. Clean, accessible water is found often in high tourist areas, in major hubs of travel and commerce. The water found in rural areas is more likely to be unprotected and susceptible to outside contaminants. But what makes this water dangerous? Oftentimes, we think of water as either good or bad, clean or unclean, but water access around the world is split into categories. The World Health Organization separates water sources as improved or unimproved. Improved water sources have various protections and include household connections, boreholes, protected springs, and rainwater collection. Unimproved water sources include unprotected wells or springs and surface water, such as rivers, dams, or lakes. These broad categories leave a lot of room for interpretation as to what makes water good or bad. Dr. Buerck is an engineering professor at Mercer University and director of the Cecil Day Family Center for International Groundwater Innovation. She says that there are a lot of definitions of good water, but a common one, and the most simple, is being free of pathogens.
So ideally, a clean water or good water, it's not going to make you sick or the potential to get you sick. It's going to not have extensive amounts of turbidity or suspended solids or organics.
Now this sounds very simple. Water testing for pathogens and harmful elements has advanced tremendously. However, issues start to arise when faced with human subjectivity. Dr. Buerck grew up in St. Louis and said that when she moved to Florida, though the water was clean, it still didn't taste as good as her hometowns.
Clean drinking water, depending on where you're at and the community you're talking to, means drastically different things. But in general, it's colorless, odorless, and free from pathogens. So whether that's from a spring, whether you have to filter it, you just don't want it to have E. coli or other diseases that can be spread, which are very common.
Water can be, by definition, clean, but cleanliness is subjective by the community that the water services. Issues with subjectivity are exacerbated by types of water delivery systems and access. Dr. Natalie Cardelino, an engineering professor at Mercer University, will be spearheading the 2023 trip to the Dominican Republic. She said that the infrastructure of the delivery itself plays a huge role in how communities get good water and how the communities respond to the water itself.
They're very different, the different problems in the different communities. We were building a water system for a town called Los Caños. It's really remote, dirt roads. You need four-wheel drive to get there. The roads become impassable when it rains. But we went there every day and we built a water system for them. There was a spring. We trenched lines from that spring to a water tank that we constructed. And then from that water tank, we laid piping to the individual homes.
Water accessibility needs change over time as well. Dr. Cardelino told a story of a spring that had a protective box around it and fully functional piping, but the spring itself had naturally moved locations after a few years.
Over time, the spring had shifted away from that spring box. So they had a spring that was running, and then they had a spring box with all the plumbing and all the pipes, but it wasn't filled with water. And so we had to sort of recreate a spring box and divert the spring, the active spring, back into that spring box so that it would fill up and then run the lines.
Naturally, each of the communities has its own needs, and the upkeep for each project is highly individualized. Dr. Cardelino stressed the involvement of the community and said that during construction of the tanks, the students were helping out the community members more than the other way around.
We've also done a little bit of training with community members. They're very fascinated by when we're testing the water, what we're doing, and so we've trained them to do a little bit of the water testing as well.
Because of the close community engagement, each project is able to be maintained by those using it, ensuring the longevity of the project and its usefulness. There is no universal definition or set standard for water. The guidelines that we do have are simple and are subjective from community to community. As water becomes increasingly commodified, sustainability and usability will be the overwhelming focus of each community. What makes good water is subjective, and the needs of each community must be met on a case-by-case basis.